Welcome to the Piston Fanatic. I'm your host, Dave Dalton, and I'm excited to share my passion and perspective of our Detroit Pistons as we go on this fantastic voyage together. I've been a diehard Piston fan since the days of Dave Bing and Bob Lanier. I've also been the varsity basketball coach of a very successful program in northern Michigan. Before we get started, please click the subscribe button, and we're going to talk about so many things today. We're going to talk about, obviously, the 23rd loss in a row by our Pistons, but first, shout out to the Lions. They're up 21-0 over the Seattle Seahawks at halftime, and if they win tonight, they'll be 10-4. And there are some people questioning whether the Pistons will win as many games as the Lions this year. So we'll see if that happens. Hopefully, it doesn't happen. But we got crushed 146-114, and we gave up 81 in the first half. Our defense has really been just awful. We've given up 130 or more, and I do think that that's a lot of factors. And the biggest factor is that our team is just disheartened. And so, but we got more to talk about than that. We're going to talk about a trade. Will the Pistons possibly trade Burks and Bogey to the Lakers for Hachimura? Would the Pistons ever sign Miles Bridges in the offseason? And we're going to talk about how big of a factor that shooting has played into our demise, and a new perspective by Cade Cunningham and one of my new listeners, and we'll start with that. I have a listener that his name is Reese Taylor. Shout out Reese. He lives near Manchester, England, and he's a fanatical soccer fan. And he found the joy of basketball in the last 2 or 3 years. At first, most of the people in the UK, he said, are Lakers or Bulls fans, but he doesn't like them that much, and he likes underdogs, and so he picked us partway because he likes Eminem too. So nice to have you aboard, Reese. And he said that he loves the podcast, and it's a huge part of his basketball education. So that means a lot to me, Reese. So this Monty Williams, after the game tonight, he said that once we get whole, guys are going to have to sit. That's just how it is. And he's talked tough before, but obviously guys are going to have to sit. Not sure why he has to make that statement. I'm assuming when Duran comes back and if Monty Morris comes back. So I don't know why he's saying that, but it is a fact. Guys are going to have to sit. But there's guys that are playing right now that should be sitting, and he's not sitting them. So I just don't know what, I don't, again, you got to trust his actions, not his words when it comes to Monty Williams. So another thing, though, that he said that's, I think it's an indictment against him. He said the team has seen slippage in the non-negotiables. Think about what you just said, Monty. There's slippage and there are things that are non-negotiable, and that should be your non-negotiables. You're the one, in your coaching staff is the one that comes up with those. And so I just see that as, a big red flag. He said mistakes have compounded over the last week or so, and that is true. We're playing tough competition, and tonight we didn't have Stu, we haven't had Bagley, and obviously the biggest loss is probably Duran and Monty Morris, but still there's slippage. But a lot of it, I think, like I said, the last episode is the team has really, kind of shut Monty out, and again, I do think a lot of it is his fault, but I do think that it's hard. They're losing, and so to come into the locker room and hear Monty say the same thing and tell you what to do and how to do it, and you practice, and then you lose again, and after a while, the words, they just don't mean as much. So I just think that's a huge part, and I did see a little more heart tonight, even though our defense was bad. But I did see we played with more energy than we did in Philadelphia last game. But it's still, we were playing even without Bogey, and Bogey's a big difference maker. He gives us a shooter, but we're playing way worse now than we were with Bogey, and that stuns me. But it's because of the emotional impact that this losing streak has had on the team and how disheartened they are. And so I just think that there's just a lot of things that go into the human element, and we could say that they need to just try to win and try to play. And Cade put it in a really good perspective, though. I think for me, and he said, they asked Cade how he's been able to stay positive, and he said, I played in 12 games last year. I was in no mood. Yeah, I was in a darker spot then, he said. He said, losing is the worst thing ever. So he tried to catch himself, trying to say that losing's not as bad as not getting to play. But in his heart, losing isn't as bad as having to sit there for 70 games and not get to play. So he said, I hate it more than anything, losing. But he said, but every day in warm-ups, I say I'm blessed to do this, and I think we have this young team that is blessed to do this, and I think that is great perspective by Cade, who played awesome tonight. Whether you're a fan or not, he played a tough game, and it's really hard. It's really hard to play good when everybody around you is playing really bad. And there is such a thing as, I mean, I've seen it in my coaching career. Shooting can be contagious. In baseball or softball, hitting can be contagious. And every sport, it's contagious. Things happen that, if somebody else on your team, just if your team makes a shot, you're better on defense. If a player makes a shot, he's better on defense, or she's better on defense. So there's lots of factors that go into play there. But I just think that Monty has kind of lost the team, but I think that he obviously there's slippage in the non-negotiables. So that tells you, I think, a lot. So um, we're having problems shooting, and shooting is, probably the biggest thing. We're getting killed at the 3-point line, and we've been shooting worse and worse. So Cade was shooting really well. Cade, for most of the season, he was shooting 40%. And then just lately, he had one stretch of 3 games where he was like 3 for 19, and then now he's going through another bad stretch. And Jaden Ivey, he was shooting 40% for the first 14 games, and he was getting jerked around still by Monty back then, but now he tonight he made his first 3 in 5 games, and he's shooting like 30% in the last 10 games, and he was shooting 40%. No, I'm sorry, he's shooting 20% in the last 10 games, and like I said, he hadn't made 1 in 5 games, so he was 2 for 6 on threes tonight, so that was a little bit better, but overall our team is awful on shooting open threes. Open means is defined by being no defender within 6 feet of you, and we're shooting like under 30% on open threes, and we saw it again tonight. That wasn't counting tonight's game, but it happened all night tonight, and we get an average of 20 open threes a game, and that's not on Monty. Monty's, I guess you could say, his offense helped create that, but that is a big problem, our shooting, and we just get how we've had the last 3 games, we're getting killed worse than ever. Tonight we had 8 turnovers, and Milwaukee had 14. And so we always were complaining about the turnovers were the problem, but they just shellacked us from the 3-point line. We were 6 for 28, and that's 21%, and they were 19 for 42, which 45%. And that's a huge deficit. But we don't have the shooters. Troy did not get the shooters. People say Cade was a really good shooter in college. He was. He shot 40%. But prior to that, Cade was not a good 3-point shooter. I do have faith in him, but his shot has changed. Jaden Ivey's shot has changed. I can tell you, I study everybody's shot. I've studied for 40 years. I watch how they release the ball. I watch the rotation on the ball. I watch the arc on the ball. I watch where their follow through goes every time. I watch that on players my whole life. I don't know, for whatever reason, it's an obsession of mine. And Cade had arc way better this year, way improved, and that's why his percentage was way better. His shot is flattened now again. And I've seen that with players where their shots regress. Ivy started out last year, his 3-point shot was inconsistent. As the year went on, he got more and more consistent. We had Rex Kalanium and John Beeline and other guys working with him that, his shot was consistent. But I think part of it is it's mental. It's, that affects their shot and their form, and Ivy's not extending his arm and holding his follow through the same way that he did earlier in the year. So this summer, man, his follow through, his shot looked even better, and I just was so smooth and everything. But it's just hard when you're going through different things emotionally. So we'll go through the box score. No, before we go through the box score, let's talk about the trade. So this is my trade, so it's not, there's speculation. There's been speculation for 2 years that the Lakers want Bogey, and they are, we're a bad 3-point shooting team. They're one of the worst in the league, and their timeline is now. So they lost to the Spurs last night, but of course Anthony Davis and some other guys didn't play. Some of their better players didn't play, but and D'Angelo Russell didn't play, so 2 key players didn't play. But anyway, they don't have 3-point shooting, and so they have a rare thing. I talk about there's, everybody wants to have a wing that can play 3, play defense, and shoot the 3. So everybody's looking for those, and there's not enough. But the Lakers have an abundance of them. The the Brooklyn Nets have a little bit too many too, so they could possibly trade one, and we'll look into that maybe next episode. But the Lakers have Rui Hachimura, and I think that that's, we could trade Burks and uh, Bojan for Rui. And we desperately need a forward. We need 3-point shooters. And again, we'd be giving up 3-point shooting with those two guys, although Burks has just been in a terrible slump a lot of the year. So, but giving them bogey, and they are in a win now situation with LeBron being 39. And if we could get Rui Hachimura, um, he's 25 years old. He's 6'8", and he's making 15 million this year, 17 million next year, and 18 million the next year. So he's making less than Stu. So anyway, but he shoots 50% from the floor and 30%, 37% on threes. So that's the guy we need. They have another guy who starts for them. I doubt they would want to trade him. I like him a lot, Torian Prince, and he's 6'6", and he can shoot the three, but he's making 7 million this year, and then he's going to be a free agent. He's 29, so that's older, but he's still younger than Bowie and Burks, younger than both those guys. And again, Burks is going to be gone at the end of the year anyway, and Bojan has one more year possibly left on his contract. So that's just a trade that I'm floating out there. That they also have Cam Reddish, so we could trade for them. They have an abundance of wings, and they need some shooting. So hopefully they would trade us one of those guys. We could give them two guys or whatever. I heard John Collins is back on the market, and so that's a little weird thing that John Collins. We tried to trade for him when he was with the Hawks, and then the Hawks ended up giving him to the Jazz for like nothing, and part of it just to get rid of his contract finally. And there's some questions about him. Why he doesn't fit. Why do teams not want a guy that's 6'9" that can play defense, protect the rim, shoot the three, catch alley oops, and dunk them? And anyway, he's according to some reports, he is the Jazz are making him available. So they also talked about making Lauri Markkanen available, and they've never done that before, but they're going to want everything for him. And there's teams that are in the win now mode that could really use him and have way more assets than we do. So the Pacers, who have a really nice team, but they could use, everybody could use Lauri Markkanen, but the Pacers could, and the Pacers have extra. See, we don't have any extra draft picks, and we're still stuck with that draft pick that we gave up. We can't even trade a first round pick till 2029. And so because of the Isaiah Stewart trade, until that conveys, I mean, it might happen that before 2029 that we can start trading picks if we have to give up that pick that the Knicks own now. So, but it's not going to happen this year because we'd have to be finish better than in the 18th spot. So the other team is the Jazz. I mean, not the Jazz, the Sacramento Kings. So they could use him too. And I mean, again, everybody could use him, but especially the Pacers and Oklahoma City. And they have the mother lode. They have more picks and young players that they could trade the Jazz. And so they are a huge, I would think they would want to get him. So Miles Bridges, former Spartan at Michigan State, and he is a great player, and we need a wing. And he got in big trouble with some domestic violence with the mother of his children that was disgusting and terrible, and he got suspended for like a year, and then he got suspended for part of this year, and he came back, and then there's another thing that cropped up where I don't know, I heard some rumors about what happened, but I'm not going to speculate, but he could be still in some legal binds too. But he is, so his team the Hornets tried to buy him to get him to sign a contract cheap because of all of his problems, and he didn't. So he was going to be an unrestricted free agent. So he signed the qualifying offer that's going to make him an unrestricted free agent at the end of this year. He made only 7.9 million. He blew it, man. He was set to make a max contract or near max contract. So anyway, who would want him, and would the PR would be a terrible hit for any team. What do you think? Would you sign Miles Bridges? But here's the thing: he's shooting 49% this year, 36% on threes, 7 rebounds, 2.6 assists, 85% from the free throw line, and averaging 20 points a game. And he gets steals, and he can really fly through the air. So that's, what do you think? Leave it in the comments what you think about that. And you could put something in his contract, like Houston got off Kevin Porter Jr.'s contract because he had a history of acts that he shouldn't have done, and so he did it one more, and then they were able to just like set him free. And so I've talked about OG Anunoby, and I still said it would be a huge mistake to trade anybody for him unless we had a guarantee from his agent that he was going to re-sign with us. And why would he do that? Because I mean, everybody's going to want him, and everybody's going to offer him, more than what he's even worth, because there's supply and demand. There's way more people need a guy that can play defense and shoot threes like he can than there are teams. So we'll see what happens with him. But I mean, I would overpay him in the off season when he's a free agent, but I wouldn't risk trading anybody for him when we're having such a terrible year. And to give up something for him just to play the rest of this year, that would be just crazy. And I know some people, I shouldn't call people crazy, but I do think that it wouldn't be a wise move. So let's talk about the game tonight, go through the stats. And Bagley came back. It was nice to have Marvin back. We needed him because Stu was out, and Marvin was 6 for 11 and 7 rebounds in 22 minutes and had 12 points. So that's kind of typical for Marvin. Good game. Asar only played 24 minutes. I want him to play more than that. He was 3 for 6. Again, his percentage has been over 50% or above 50% for quite a long time now. Although he's not good at shooting threes. He did make a 3 tonight, and then he airballed one by a long ways. So I did have to say this. I think I started too, but Cade was not a pure shooter, and Asar was a bad shooter when we drafted him. And obviously, Duran's not a 3-point shooter, and Ivy wasn't a great shooter, but Ivy kind of made himself into one. But then just lately, he's just regressed terribly. And so, what is the reality? And so the bottom line is, I talked about when I was looking for people in other drafts, when I thought we were going to get a top 3 pick, and we didn't. We slipped to 5. I was wanting Jabari Smith Jr., and was a great 3-point shooter, and Brandon Miller. The next year, he was a great 3-point shooter. So those are those guys that, they're the top 3-point shooters in college or whatever league they play in. We need one of those. But so anyway, Asar only scored 6 points, and he had 0 turnovers, though, so that was a good thing. So Bogey had a good night. He was 8 for 15, so 2 for 6 only on threes, and he got some good looks. 6 for 6 from the line, so Bogey does that. So those guys that get those extra free throws are so invaluable that it makes a big difference. And other teams have them, and we don't, but Bogey does draw fouls. So he had 2 turnovers and 24 points. So Cade had a great game. Cade was, again, it's hard when everything's just crushing around you, and I still get him. Have I said before that I hate it that Cade gets fouled and doesn't get calls? It happened all the time. Finally, they gave him a call tonight, and then they review it and they take the call away. Giannis drives to the basket. He pushes off with his off arm, puts his shoulder down, and they challenge it. And they had called a foul on Giannis, and then they wiped that off, and they gave the foul to our team. And so, that just happens. There's bumps. People drive to the basket, they get bumped. And if it's a Piston, it's not a foul. And I know it sounds like sour grapes, but it is reality. People know who the better players are in the NBA, and the better teams are, and who's expected to win, and they do referee to some extent according to that. So, but Cade was 10 for 17, but only 0 for 2 on threes. But he made tough moves, tough shots, and again, he comes off. I mean, they might as well not even run the high pick and roll with him anymore, because they just double him. They just trap him right away, way up away from the basket, and so then he has to make a tough play. He's better off just getting some movement, clearing the area out, and letting him work one-on-one. So that's just tough for him. But he still persevered. He played great. He did look terrible last game, and it looked like his heart was not in the game, but it was tonight. So he had 6 assists and only 2 turnovers. So his turnovers are going down. His percentage is up. He had 25 points. Killian Played only 14 minutes. It's kind of weird to me, but he was 1 for 4 and 0 for 0 on threes, and so that's not weird because that's he's been playing more minutes than that and not scoring and shooting poorly. But he had 4 rebounds, 5 assists, which is really high for a guy that played 14 minutes and he had only 1 turnover. But um, he's not the answer. I mean, he's a backup in my opinions, and I say that repeatedly. Here's the guy. I feel bad for him. He's had a terrible amount of injuries in college. He got injured and got his most of the senior year taken away. Um, Isaiah Livers, he 26 minutes. So he keeps playing him 26 minutes, 27 minutes, and he keeps doing the same thing. And 1 for 8 from the field and 0 for 5 on threes. And he is a shooter, but he ain't getting it done. 4 rebounds and 2 points. So Knox played 9 minutes, didn't score. Wiseman. So again, the last few games, if there's any silver lining, James Wiseman, 26 minutes only, but he was 7 for 9. There's something to be said for 7 for 9. We a team that struggles to score, so we have no chance. We're giving up 130 a game, and we can't make a three. You cannot score 130 points in this league without making a bunch of threes. I don't know what the number is, but I would be very fascinated to know how many threes the average team that scores 130 points. Of course, 130 points is way above average. So, anyway, it's impossible to win even if we have only 8 turnovers because we can't shoot. So we got to get shooters, we got to get wings, and we'll see what happens. But he had a good game. Not only did he have 17 points, 6 rebounds, he had 5 assists and 0 turnovers. And so hopefully Monty rewards him. And again, I know people, like I say, there's a narrative about him that he's worthless, and he wasn't that worthless last year. He wasn't good, and he doesn't react on defense. I know that, and everybody said he just wants to post up. He doesn't even look there. I watched him make outside shots. He doesn't even look to make it. I mean, I'm sure he's trying to do exactly what he's told, and so he's not supposed to shoot outside. He doesn't post up. I know a lot of you hated that, but anyway, he deserves to play, and I don't know what's going to happen. I doubt. I don't think Monty likes him. I don't think that we'll see what happens if there's a chance. As long as we have Bagley, I guess we'll probably just let him go. I don't know if anybody still, as good as he's played for 3 games, I don't think anybody is going to offer us much for him unless he was packaged in a deal with somebody else. So Burks only played 4 minutes, 0 for 2. Sasser 17 minutes, so Sasser was 3 for 3 and 4 for 4 the last 2 games. So Monty rewarded him. He had played 17 minutes, 2 for 4 from the floor and 1 for 2 on threes and 6 for 6 from the line. So that was a good game for him. We shot 45% and they shot, so that's not a terrible percentage, but they shot 57%. And again, the big thing was the three, 6 for 28 for us, 19 for 42 for them. And they had guys that aren't even good players that came off their bench that just nailed threes, and we can't buy a three. But again, I think we are not as bad as we have been. So that's, I don't think Livers is near as bad as he shot. I don't think Stu's as bad as he's been shooting lately. And I know Ivy's not as bad as he's been lately. And anyway, Giannis had 22, Lillard had 33, Portis, who annoys me, he had 31, and he got every call for whatever reason. We did screw up. I mean, in Jaden Ivey, he didn't shoot well, but he kept driving in there, and he's one of the tops in the league in finishing at the rim, 96th percentile, but he just kept on challenging Lopez, and Lopez had 5 blocks tonight. And I don't know if 2 or 3 of them were probably against Jaden Ivey. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, we're going to Atlanta on Monday, and hopefully we get a win. But I think I have a little bit better perspective. I mean, that was a terrible loss today. It was really bad, and like I said, it's good. The Lions won, but we just got to get this turned around. We got to get things going right, and I just hope we do somehow, and I hope that somehow by some miracle Monty just starts playing Jaden Ivey. That's my biggest disappointment of the season. It's crushing the whole thing, the losing streak, and looking as bad as we've looked, especially the last 3 games, is just like embarrassing. And so we're losing. We're the worst team in the league, and we're playing the last 3 games 2 of the best teams. The Sixers and the Bucks are 2 of the best records in the NBA. So, you kind of would think that you wouldn't lose, but we still, we got to get our heart back. And Monty, you can't allow slippage, and you can't give up the non-negotiables. So, be the reason that somebody feels valued and loved. Please subscribe to my channel, and I thank every one of you for listening. I'll try to get into all of your comments, and go Pistons.